Hello, my name is Ben Thomas. I'm a student at Clemson University and have been studying capital punishment and trying to educate myself and gain expertise in the ethics of capital punishment, as well as the science behind it. I have always had an interest in ethics in general, but I had never educated myself on capital punishment, but recently took the opportunity to do so. I did not originally know how I felt about the debate on capital punishment. Ultimately, I determined that I believe at this time the U.S. should not have capital punishment incorporated in its judicial system. I would like my arguments and ideas to reach the youth in the U.S. because that is the future and the best way to swing the opinion against capital punishment in the upcoming years. I want my presentation to be understandable for all people, not just people with law degrees. Ethical debates come with many different opinions and ideas, but ultimately two sides are typically formed, one side for and the other against. In particular, the ethical debate on capital punishment has been very relevant for the past few decades. At this time, the U.S. should not have capital punishment incorporated in its judicial system because it violates the Eighth Amendment prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment and the guarantees of due process of law and equal protection. If execution itself is not considered cruel and unusual, then there still is a lack of technology and knowledge on how to quickly and effectively perform an execution, which can lead to suffering of the victim. Capital punishment first appeared in the United States during colonial times, where criminal punishments varied drastically. The first recorded execution in the colonies was in Jamestown Colony, present-day Virginia, in the early 17th century. Criminal offenses such as stealing grapes, trading Native Americans, or striking a parrot could all result in the punishment of execution in some colonies. However, more recently in the United States, it is estimated that 1,517 people have been executed since 1970. However, over the past 2 decades, the number of executions has been declining, with the majority of executions located in a few specific states, such as Texas, Oklahoma, and Virginia. Outside of the United States, capital punishment is only practiced in a select few other first world countries, including Saudi Arabia, China, Iran, and Egypt. In the United States judicial system, capital punishment violates the Constitution because it is a form of cruel and unusual punishment, and also violates the guarantees of due process of law and equal protection. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, capital punishment is cruel because it is a relic of the earliest days of penology, when slavery, branding, and other corporal punishments were commonplace. Like those barbaric practices, executions have no place in a civilized society. The case, paragraph 11. Capital punishment in itself is a cruel and unusual punishment that should be banned. Simply because something was once normal and an ancient part of society does not mean it should always remain a part of society. Many practices were once commonplace but are now undisputedly banned, such as smoking in restaurants and slavery. As society advances and becomes more civil, certain practices are removed and capital punishment has reached a point where it should be let go and removed from society. Many other first world countries, such as Great Britain, have taken steps to remove capital punishment from their judicial systems, and the United States should follow. The Supreme Court has ruled against capital punishment previously in Furman v. Georgia. In the case, the Supreme Court claimed that capital punishment caused a disproportionate application of the death penalty, specifically discriminating against the poor and minorities. The court also reasoned that the existing laws terminated life in exchange for marginal contributions to society. Cornell Law, 2008, page 3. As explained by Cornell Law's report on capital punishment is disproportionately applied to minorities and the poor. The ACLU also makes an argument concerning the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection. The ACLU believes that capital punishment is a violation of equal protection because capital punishment is used randomly and discriminatorily. According to the ACLU, individuals are more likely to receive capital punishment when their victims are white, the offender is a minority, and the offender is poor. A similar argument is made by Hilary Dodson and Scott Carter in their academic journal, Changing Views Towards the Death Penalty, the intersecting impact of race and gender on attitudes. The journal further supports the idea that race plays a role in capital punishment, but also emphasizes the idea that gender does not. However, as long as race plays a role in capital punishment, there is a violation of the Constitution through the Equal Protection Clause. A violation of the Equal Protection Clause is another reason capital punishment is not currently fit in the United States judicial system. All other laws and guidelines are held to scrutiny with the Constitution, and capital punishment should be as well. It was shown in Furman v. Georgia that capital punishment violates the Equal Protection Clause, but the ruling was reversed in Gregg v. Georgia. The ruling was reversed because the Supreme Court decided that Georgia had modified its capital punishment procedures to not violate the Equal Protection Clause. The approval should not have been approved for all states to continue with capital punishment if they desired so. Only Georgia should have been able to continue with capital punishment, as that was the state that the Supreme Court approved of. Even if capital punishment was entirely constitutional, then we still would not currently have the technology to efficiently and painlessly execute an individual. This issue was brought to the center of the media's attention after the botched execution of Clayton Lockett in 2014. Lockett suffered during his execution, felt great pain, and even experienced chemical burns on his arm. The incident involving Lockett has raised questions with all other executions that have been performed and brought many claims to the surface that we do not know how to effectively execute someone. There are many reasons people suggest why they are in support of capital punishment, but many of the arguments are flawed. Many people argue for capital punishment, and the backing for their beliefs largely comes from religious texts and beliefs. According to James Unever and Francis Cullen in 2006, religion plays a role in people's views on capital punishment because scholarly researchers have investigated the role that religious beliefs play in shaping sentiments towards crimes and policies, with a particular focus on the relationship between a Christian fundamentalist denomination and support for the death penalty. Researchers have reasoned that Christian fundamentalists should be more likely to support capital punishment than other moderate denominations because they hold conservative religious beliefs that justify the use of the death penalty, page 169. However, religion should not be a reason to side with a certain political belief, especially not capital punishment. When arguments are made off of one's religious beliefs, then the argument will have no meaning to others who do not have the same religious beliefs. Arguments made off of one's religious beliefs only polarize arguments and create two sides that are unable to discuss the issue or dilemma and often have a strong dislike for the other side. When these are the circumstances between two sides in an argument or debate, a standstill is created where no progress can be made to resolve an issue. For example, a debate between pro-life and pro-choice people often does not get anywhere due to the high polarization between the two groups and entirely different beliefs. These arguments are not what anyone wants to try and create and come to a conclusion on the right way to handle capital punishment, which is why religion is not a good way to argue one's beliefs on the topic of capital punishment. Another point that is made by many supporters of capital punishment is that DNA evidence is very accurate and a good way to confirm that the correct person is being sentenced to execution in a court trial. However, DNA evidence is not as accurate as many people in the United States may believe. While DNA may be more accurate and reliable than other forensic sciences, it is still fundamentally probabilistic and prone to uncertainties at all stages of its production. Yet because of the certainty attached to DNA evidence in public discourse, it can be used as a lever with which to challenge laws' claims to truth, making authority, and to undermine public trust in the death penalty. Aronson and Simon, 2009, page 12. DNA evidence is a key part of capital punishment because it is relied upon heavily when determining whether an individual is guilty or not and whether they should face capital punishment or not. The quote explains that many people in the United States believe that DNA evidence is almost 100% certain and correct. That simply is not the case. DNA evidence varies often and can be incorrect way more often than the average person typically believes. A major fear that is involved with the death penalty is executing somebody who is wrongly convicted, but people feel more confident when DNA evidence is supporting a conviction. However, DNA evidence is only creating a false insecurity because the evidence is not as certain as many believe. With DNA evidence being more inconsistent than most people believe, a major issue arises because it is now questionable whether or not we can be certain that the correct person is being executed when capital punishment is being used. Being certain that the suspect is guilty in a case where capital punishment plays a role is crucial. Many organizations and critics of capital punishment make the argument that capital punishment deprives individuals of due process of law because once capital punishment is carried out, its effects are irreversible. This issue of being irreversible arises because new evidence can be found concerning cases that would warrant a reversal of the decision of capital punishment. However, new evidence will not be able to change the case if the individual has already faced capital punishment. Others who have been convicted of a crime that has new evidence appear in their cases can be warranted a reversal of a decision or a different punishment. But this possibility is non-existent when capital punishment is in place for a convicted individual, and ultimately removes the guarantee of due process of law according to the ACLU. Overall, capital punishment should not be a part of the United States' judicial system because it violates the Constitution as a form of cruel and unusual punishment, and also violates the guarantees of due process of law and equal protection. Even if capital punishment was determined to be constitutional, then there still is a lack of technology on how to efficiently and safely perform an execution. This scenario was shown by Clayton Lockett's botched execution in 2014 that has created hesitation with all executions performed since. Lockett was a demonstration of the United States' ability to carry out capital punishment, and it was not successful. Lockett's execution was clearly a cruel and unusual punishment that nobody else should have to face under the United States criminal justice system.